in the 6th century, as the vast land of China was engulfed in division and chaos after centuries of prolonged warfare and endless power struggles. A new dynasty emerged, bringing hope for renewal and unity for the people. This was the Sui Dynasty, founded by Emperor Wen of Sui, a ruler with a grand vision of a unified and prosperous China. During this period, the country underwent significant transformations through unprecedented reforms to build a powerful empire where not only political power was consolidated but also military, economic, social, and cultural development was promoted. Immediately upon ascending to the throne, Emperor Wen of Sui began efforts to unify and rebuild the country. With broad vision and unwavering determination, he reformed the administrative system and established a centralized governance model to maintain firm control from the central government. To achieve this, he divided the country into administrative units at the district and county levels, all under the court's control. This was the first time a strict management system was established to minimize the autonomy of local nobles and lords, centralizing power in the hands of the central government. Local officials were no longer allowed to appoint themselves or exercise autonomy as before, but instead were subject to strict appointment and supervision by the court. This enabled the central court to maintain control over the country and ensure unity in politics and law. However, Emperor Wen understood that simply centralizing power was not enough to build a truly powerful dynasty. He aspired to create an administration based on actual competence rather than lineage or social class. Thus, the imperial examination system was introduced, marking the first time in Chinese history that a new path to selecting talents for government positions was opened. From now on, not only people from noble lineage had the chance to advance, but anyone in society with talent and knowledge could serve the country. This was a revolution in building a loyal, professional, and skilled bureaucracy, ensuring fairness in recruitment and motivating learning and striving among all social classes. This system allowed talented commoners to advance, forming a new intellectual class loyal to the court and serving the interests of the people. But the Sui dynasty's achievements did not end there. Emperor Wen and later his successor, Emperor Yang of Sui, built a powerful and organized army, ready to counter any external threats. The Sui military not only defended the nation but also expanded territory and maintained order in border regions. Organized into special units, the Sui army became highly disciplined and efficient. However, under Emperor Yang, excessive expansionist ambitions led to large-scale military campaigns, the most famous being the campaign against Goguryeo. This campaign, unprecedented in scale, marked a turning point for the Sui dynasty. Despite mobilizing a formidable military force and thorough preparation, the campaign ultimately failed, resulting in heavy losses for the army and the national economy. These failures not only weakened the country's resources but also stirred unrest among the people, diminishing confidence in the court and foreshadowing future instability. Economically, the Sui dynasty also implemented numerous reforms to develop agriculture and trade, ensuring the livelihood of the people. To meet the food demands of a vast and populous country, the Sui constructed large-scale irrigation systems, particularly the Grand Canal. This large canal connected Beijing and Hangzhou, becoming the economic lifeline of the entire nation, facilitating the transport of goods, food, and troops across regions. The Grand Canal was not only an agricultural support structure but also a symbol of Chinese labor and creativity. Thanks to the Grand Canal, agriculture in the plains flourished, contributing to food production and stabilizing people's lives. Alongside efforts to boost agriculture, the Sui also emphasized craftsmanship and trade. Handcrafted products such as ceramics, textiles, and metalworks reached an apex of refinement and artistry. These products not only met domestic demand but were also widely exported along the Silk Road, an international trade route connecting China with West Asia and Europe. The Silk Road was not only a vital trade route but also a cultural bridge, allowing China to exchange and learn from other cultures. Through this, Chinese culture and goods became renowned and sought after worldwide. and China also embraced new ideas and technologies from abroad. The Sui Dynasty's contributions extended beyond the administrative, military, and economic realms. They also focused on the spiritual life of the people. Buddhism, a religion with values of compassion and peace, flourished during this period. The Sui court built thousands of temples and pagodas, encouraging the populace to embrace Buddhism for its serene spiritual values. Buddhism became a crucial spiritual support for the people, helping them find comfort and peace in life. Simultaneously, the court also upheld Confucianism, promoting traditional values like loyalty, filial piety, and social responsibility. The harmonious combination of Buddhism and Confucianism created a society not only stable, but also rich in spiritual and ethical depth, fostering unity and harmony in a diverse society. With vigorous development in all fields, the Sui dynasty not only strengthened domestic power but also extended its influence to neighboring countries. Neighboring states such as Japan, Korea, and Vietnam admired the achievements of the Sui dynasty. They sent delegations to China to study its state system, imperial examinations, and construction techniques. The Japanese, in particular, were impressed by the centralized state model of the Sui dynasty and did not hesitate to implement similar reforms in their own country. Thanks to this exchange and learning, Chinese culture and ideology transcended borders and became an essential part of the cultural development of East Asian nations. However, while the Sui dynasty achieved great accomplishments and extended its cultural influence, not everything went smoothly. The ambition to expand territory, exemplified by the large-scale military campaign to conquer Goguryeo, placed a heavy burden on the national treasury and military. This campaign mobilized hundreds of thousands of soldiers and immense national resources, yet ultimately ended in disastrous failure. This not only inflicted severe losses in manpower and resources but also shook the morale of the people. For the populace, the defeat in Goguryeo was a major shock, as they witnessed a powerful dynasty fail to secure victory, resulting in discontent and skepticism toward the court's competence. To compensate for the losses, the court was forced to increase taxes and impose harsh labor policies. High taxes, coupled with massive construction projects like the Grand Canal, demanded a vast workforce. Farmers and the laboring class, already exhausted by relentless labor, began to feel the weight of these burdens. They had to sacrifice time and effort for the court's projects. While their daily lives saw no improvement, this gradually eroded public support, and discontent within society grew increasingly widespread. Rebellions began to break out everywhere. From rural areas to remote borderlands, people started to rise against the court, resisting exploitation and oppression. The harshness of life and the loss of trust in the government led them to seek alternative paths, new hopes, distancing themselves from the court they once supported. Even within the court, signs of deterioration emerged. Corruption, power struggles, and disunity became widespread, weakening the central authority and eroding its control. As instability spread, people looked back and compared the hardships they were enduring with the prosperous years when the dynasty was newly established. When the Sui dynasty could no longer manage the situation, its downfall became inevitable. A once powerful dynasty, with dreams of unifying and building an ideal China, now left only an image of unrest and division. Constant rebellions, internal crises, and the decline in loyalty among officials led to the gradual disintegration of the Sui dynasty. Though it fell with pain and regret, the legacy left by the Sui still shines brightly in history. The Grand Canal, the pride of the dynasty, continued to serve as an economic lifeline for the country, standing as a historical testament to the intelligence and strength of the Chinese people. The imperial examination system, a revolutionary initiative, was continued and expanded by later dynasties, becoming an essential part of China's talent selection system and exerting a profound influence on neighboring countries. Cultural and ideological values, such as Buddhism and Confucianism, achievements in handicrafts and commerce, all left a deep imprint and became invaluable assets not only for China but for the entire East Asian region. The Sui, with all its brilliant successes and bitter failures, became a symbol of the aspirations for greatness as well as the lessons in the rise and fall in history. The lessons from the Sui Dynasty about balancing expansion with stability, about the importance of listening to and caring for the people's well-being, became profound teachings for later dynasties. The Sui was not merely a dynasty that once existed. It was a symbol of resolve, of the ambition to build a mighty and ideal empire. As time passes, the image of the Sui Dynasty, with its grand constructions, bold reforms, and inevitable mistakes, remains an indelible part of China's history. The values and lessons of the Sui are not just China's alone, but a shared cultural heritage for all of East Asia, a testament to the relentless determination and aspirations of humanity. In the early years of the Sui Dynasty, as reforms began to be implemented, people everywhere felt the changes distinctly. Officials selected through the new examination system were no longer the aristocrats who had enjoyed wealth for generations but rather educated, talented individuals loyal to the court. In villages and towns, the populace began to encounter fairer policies. They saw hope, a new belief that even commoners, if they had talent and determination, could contribute to the country and even rise to positions in the court. This created a tremendous motivation, encouraging all social classes to focus on education and talent development. With the equal field policy, a system that distributed public land to farmers, the Sui Dynasty contributed to alleviating social inequality. Previously, land was largely in the hands of noble families, forcing the majority of the populace to depend on landowners. But now, land was distributed more fairly, allowing farmers the freedom to cultivate their plots and provide food not only for their families but also for the nation. This ensured a stable food supply and minimized conflicts and inequalities in society. Farmers suffered less exploitation and had the opportunity to improve their lives, fostering loyalty to the court. The Grand Canal, stretching thousands of kilometers, stands as a testament to the intelligence and determination of the Sui Dynasty in transforming China into a powerful nation that connects trade across regions. This construction served not only to transport goods and food, but also as an important military route, allowing the court to quickly mobilize troops to quell disturbances when necessary. For the people, the Grand Canal symbolized connection, the strength of unity, and national pride. Trading vessels crowded the waterways, the sounds of calls and laughter echoing everywhere, creating a vibrant and prosperous atmosphere in the ports and cities along the canal. During the early Sui period, society was not only politically stable but also flourishing culturally. Buddhism, which had already taken root among the people, was strongly encouraged by the court. Temples and statues of Buddha gradually emerged everywhere, becoming a spiritual refuge for the populace. For them, Buddhism was not just a religion but a source of comfort, compassion, and faith in life. The Sui Dynasty not only built temples but also invited eminent monks from India and neighboring countries to teach, engage in cultural exchanges, and promote the development of Buddhism. The harmonious blend of Buddhism and Confucianism, with values such as compassion, humaneness, and social ethics, created a culturally rich society, helping people live closely and care for one another. In addition to Buddhism, the Sui Dynasty also emphasized the traditional values of Confucianism. For the officials, Confucianism was an effective tool for social governance and the foundation of moral and ritual systems within the court. Those in the court were taught to be loyal to the emperor, devoted to the country, and to live with integrity and fairness. This helped the Sui court establish a social management system that was not only strict but also ethical, contributing to maintaining order and discipline among the people. The harmonious combination of Confucianism and Buddhism created a stable society where each individual not only cared for their own interests but also respected and helped others. Not stopping at home, the influence of the Sui Dynasty extended to neighboring countries, particularly Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, These nations admired the strength and achievements of the Sui and sought to learn and apply reforms in their own countries. The Japanese, in particular, were especially impressed by the centralized state system and the examination model of the Sui, sending many delegations to China to learn and bring back crucial elements to help build their nation. Many of Japan's subsequent reforms bore the marks of what they learned from the Sui, fostering a deep and healthy cultural exchange among the countries. However, the development and prosperity of the Sui dynasty did not last forever. With the empire's growth, problems began to arise. The territorial ambitions of Emperor Wen of Sui led the nation into costly wars, especially the prolonged military campaign in Goguryeo. The defeat in Goguryeo not only drained the national treasury, but also caused significant losses for the military and weakened public morale. To compensate for these losses, the court had to increase taxes and impose harsh labor policies. Farmers and laborers, who had already endured many hardships, now faced an additional burden. Beginning to feel exhausted and angry, discontent emerged not just in one region but spread everywhere. From the plains to the distant mountainous areas, where people felt abandoned and oppressed. Soon after, uprisings began to erupt across the country. The peasant revolts and labor uprisings increased, creating a wave of opposition to the court. The people rose against exploitation and oppression, seeking new paths for themselves. At the same time, within the court, unity gradually disintegrated. Corruption and power struggles among officials and within the royal family became commonplace, causing the government machinery to lose cohesion and control. The court, once a symbol of strength and stability, now became chaotic and directionless. Ultimately, the Sui could not withstand the internal weakening and external pressures. A once powerful and prosperous dynasty was now reduced to remnants of division and instability. The downfall of the Sui dynasty was a painful and regrettable conclusion, but it also served as a significant lesson about the importance of balancing expansionist ambitions with social stability, as well as the necessity of listening to and caring for the people's well-being. Though it collapsed, the legacy that the Sui left behind remains a precious heritage. The Grand Canal, the examination system, and the cultural and religious values of this dynasty continue to endure, forming the foundation for the development of later dynasties. The Tang Dynasty, its successor, inherited these achievements and elevated them to new heights, ushering China into a golden age. The combination of Buddhism and Confucianism, the centralized state system and equity, along with economic and social reforms, became lessons and sources of inspiration not only for the Chinese people but also for the entire East Asian region. The Sui dynasty, with its successes and failures, has left a colorful narrative in history. It is the story of the aspiration to build an ideal empire, of bold reform efforts, and of the bitter lessons learned from expansionist ambitions and internal decline. The values and legacy of the Sui are not just lessons for China but a shared heritage for the entire East Asian region, reminding us of the resilience and willpower of humanity throughout the ups and downs of history. The collapse of the Sui dynasty left a profound sense of regret and reflection among the people. A dynasty that once shone brightly with bold reforms, magnificent projects, and a will to unify and develop is now just a wound in the collective memory of the nation. However, it is from this very dissolution that the people and future generations came to realize the eternal values of the Sui dynasty and the invaluable lesson of balancing ambition with social stability. Reflecting on the Sui, the populace remembers not only its failures but also the precious legacies left behind. Even as the ruins of the Sui remained, the Tang Dynasty began to inherit and promote the legacies of its predecessor, drawing lessons from both the brilliant achievements and mistakes of the Sui. The Tang built a dazzling golden age. The Tang emperors, with their insightful vision, not only retained the centralized administrative system that the Sui had painstakingly established but also developed it more comprehensively, strengthening unity within the state apparatus. The examination system of the Sui, having proven its fairness and effectiveness, continued to be upheld and improved by the Tang court. This opened an era where people from all over flocked to the capital, eager to take the examinations and become officials serving the court. This loyal and capable intellectual class became a solid pillar contributing to the long-term stability of the Tang. Moreover, the Grand Canal was also preserved and improved by the Tang. They understood that this route was not only the economic lifeline of the nation but also an important tool for maintaining order and connecting regions. During the Tang period, the Grand Canal increasingly fulfilled its purpose, facilitating the transport of not only food but also troops, goods, and culture from the southern regions to the north, from the capital to distant areas. For the Chinese people, the Grand Canal was not just a waterway but a symbol of unity and cohesion. Every day, merchant vessels traversed the canal, the sounds of calls and laughter from merchants and farmers echoing, creating a lively and prosperous atmosphere in the ports and cities along the canal. With the Tang Dynasty continuing and developing the examination system of the Sui, it became not only a tool for recruiting officials, but also a means of educating and enhancing knowledge among the populace. Many schools were built, and classes opened everywhere. The people, whether commoners or aristocrats, could study to advance themselves. This policy sparked an unprecedented spirit of learning and a thirst for knowledge within society. The new intellectual classes not only played a crucial role in state management but also preserved and developed culture. As a result, Chinese culture was continuously strengthened and enriched, creating an extraordinary period of cultural and intellectual development. Under the Tang Dynasty, both Confucianism and Buddhism were encouraged to develop vigorously. Temples and shrines continued to be built, and many monks and eminent teachers from India, Tibet, and other regions came to China to engage in cultural exchange and teach. At this time, Buddhism was not merely a religion. It became a spiritual foundation and a refuge for the people during this peaceful and prosperous period. With the development of Buddhism, values such as compassion, humaneness, and tolerance became deeply embedded in social life. Simultaneously, the Tang also emphasized Confucian values, especially in managing and educating officials. The harmonious combination of Buddhism and Confucianism created a Chinese society that was both humane and cohesive, with a strong sense of discipline. In retrospect, the legacy of the Sui was the very foundation upon which the Tang built its magnificent empire. Although the Sui dynasty's existence was brief, what it established, from the administrative system and examination system to the Grand Canal and spiritual values, became an indispensable part of a prosperous era under the Tang. The Chinese people do not forget the Sui's failures, but they also recognize that without the initial steps taken by the Sui, there could be no unified, developed, and prosperous China. The Sui demonstrated that a dynasty could achieve greatness if it utilized the talents and aspirations of its people. But it also warned that if a dynasty neglects its responsibility to its citizens, it will ultimately undermine the foundation it built. The legacy of the Sui continued to resonate for centuries afterward. For subsequent feudal dynasties like the Ming and Qing, the administrative and economic reforms of the Sui were still seen as important reference models. They continued to apply the lessons learned from the Sui about the importance of a rigorous management system, the strength of a professional army, and the necessity of ensuring the livelihoods and loyalty of the people. Neighboring countries like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam also learned a great deal from the Sui's model of governance and political system, absorbing cultural values and philosophies from China, which enriched their own cultures. For these countries, the Sui was not merely a dynasty of China, but a significant source of cultural and political inspiration, opening a developmental path for East Asian civilization. In summary, the Sui dynasty, with its successes and failures, inscribed an inspiring chapter in the history of China. It is the story of aspiration, of courageous reforms, and of painful mistakes. It is the tale of a dynasty that knew how to win the people's hearts but forgot to maintain that trust. An eternal lesson about balancing power with responsibility. Though thousands of years have passed, the image of the Sui, along with its enduring legacies, remains an indispensable part of the consciousness and culture of China, reminding us of humanity's strength in building and safeguarding its civilization. With the values and legacies left by the Sui Dynasty, subsequent dynasties continually learned and developed further. Great constructions like the Grand Canal, the bureaucratic system through the examination system, and the combination of Confucianism and Buddhism became cornerstones for many later dynasties. When the Tang Dynasty came to power, they not only inherited but also improved upon the systems established by the Sui, ushering in a golden age not only for China but for East Asian civilization as a whole. The Grand Canal, initially a technical marvel of the Sui, was further upgraded during the Tang era. This lengthy canal connecting the north and south became the lifeblood for transporting food, goods, and troops. With a developed irrigation system, not only the plains but also arid areas had access to water for farming, allowing farmers to cultivate their land stably and continuously. Along the canal, small towns developed into bustling trade centers, becoming hubs for the exchange of goods and culture between regions. The prosperity and development of the Grand Canal created a vibrant economic and social space, bustling with people, merchants, and soldiers. This not only brought economic benefits but also allowed people from all over the country to meet, interact, and connect with one another. For them, the Grand Canal was a testament to the development and strength of China. In addition to its economic contributions, the examination system initiated by the Sui became a symbol of fairness and opened pathways for those with talent. The Tang continued and developed the examination system, enhancing transparency and equity in selecting officials. These examinations not only provided opportunities for advancement but also promoted a spirit of learning, making education more widespread in society. Gradually, the image of candidates coming to the capital for examinations became an indispensable part of social life. They carried not only knowledge but also loyalty and responsibility toward the court. The new intellectual class, emerging from all walks of life, played a vital role in building and defending the country, preserving ethics and traditional culture. They laid the foundation for a civilized and fair society, closely tied to the court and the nation. Buddhism continued to thrive under the Tang Dynasty. Large temples and colossal Buddha statues sprang up everywhere, forming cultural and spiritual centers across the country. Monks from India, Tibet, and neighboring countries came to China, bringing their teachings, knowledge, and customs, enriching the Buddhist culture here. Buddhism was not just a religion but also a cultural bridge, facilitating exchanges between China and neighboring civilizations. The people, especially farmers and the labor class, found comfort and peace in Buddhist teachings. For them, Buddhism served as a spiritual refuge during difficult times and a source of encouragement to overcome life's challenges. Buddhism became an integral part of the spiritual life of the people, helping them maintain a meaningful existence and connection to their communities. But it was not only Buddhism. Confucianism also played an important role in Tang society. While Buddhism provided spiritual motivation for the populace, Confucianism served as the moral foundation and philosophy that helped the court effectively manage society. Tang officials were educated in the spirit of Confucianism, with values such as loyalty, integrity, and honesty. The harmonious combination of Buddhism and Confucianism created a Chinese society that was both spiritually stable and cohesive in daily life. The people adhered to ethical standards, lived closely together, and cared for one another. For them, society was not just a place to live but a community where everyone could rely on each other to build a better life together. From the profound influences of the Sui, the Tang not only flourished economically, socially, and culturally but also created an unprecedented era of international cultural exchange. The achievements of the Sui paved the way for the development and cultural exchange with other countries, particularly Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. These nations not only admired the strength and accomplishments of China but also actively sought to learn from the centralized state model. the examination system, and methods of governance. The Japanese, influenced by the Sui and Tang, sent delegations to China to study political and cultural models. They brought back new knowledge, reformed their bureaucratic systems, and built their cultural foundations. Through these cultural exchanges, China's influence spread throughout East Asia, creating a cultural region with shared values and knowledge. The legacies left by the Sui, though brief, have enduring value. Subsequent dynasties continuously learned from the successes and failures of the Sui, drawing lessons about the balance between development and stability, and the necessity of maintaining trust and connections with the people. They understood that regardless of how powerful and wealthy a dynasty might be, without the loyalty and support of the populace, long-term sustainability would be challenging. The Sui reminded them of the importance of building a solid foundation from the loyalty of the people, through understanding and caring for the lives of each individual in society. In retrospect, the Sui dynasty is not just a bygone dynasty but a significant lesson for all the feudal dynasties of China. The rise and fall of the Sui serves as a reminder of the cyclical nature of power and the sustainability of trust. They lived, contributed, and experienced the ups and downs of a great dynasty, and then departed, leaving behind lasting values and legacies. Their existence is like a footprint on the long path of history, reminding future generations that power and glory may come and go, but true values and respect for the people are what endure forever. After the collapse of the Sui dynasty, the great achievements and cultural legacies of this dynasty continued to resonate in the minds of the people and influenced subsequent dynasties. For those living in that era, the Sui was not just a dynasty but the embodiment of a grand dream, a dream of a unified, strong, and powerful China. Despite facing bitter failures, they could not deny the revolutionary reforms and achievements that laid the foundation for the nation's prosperity. Later generations looked to the Sui not only to learn from its mistakes but also to draw inspiration from its progressive reforms. The Sui ignited a spirit of learning, a desire for development, and set a model for the succeeding dynasties. From the early years of the Tang Dynasty, its emperors clearly recognized that the centralized system established by the Sui was the foundation that helped the country reach the height of prosperity. They not only maintained this system but also developed it into an effective tool for governing the country, ensuring unity and stability. During the Tang period, the examination system was improved and spread widely, expanding opportunities for talented individuals in society. Regardless of their background, people flocked to the capital from all over to take examinations, eager to serve the court and contribute their talents and efforts to the nation. These intellectuals possessed not only knowledge but also loyalty and responsibility toward the country. They were forged through rigorous examinations, embodying a spirit of dedication and a strong sense of social responsibility. This class of officials became a cornerstone of the Tang Dynasty, significantly contributing to its stability and prosperity. The Tang emperors also recognized that to maintain the dynasty's sustainability, it was essential to focus on the lives of the people. To achieve this, they continued to preserve and expand the irrigation system and public works that the Sui had painstakingly built, particularly the Grand Canal. This canal, with its thousands of kilometers in length, became the lifeblood of transportation and trade in China, bringing abundant resources from remote regions to the capital and major cities. The bustling ports, trading vessels laden with goods, and the voices and laughter of merchants and farmers along the riverbanks painted a vibrant and prosperous picture of a developing China. Under the Tang Dynasty, the influence of the Sui was also evident in the strong development of Buddhist centers. The Tang emperors, like their Sui predecessors, encouraged and patronized Buddhism, building thousands of temples and shrines throughout the country. Buddhism was not only a religion but also an important part of Chinese culture, helping to create harmony and stability in society. From eminent monks and practitioners from India, Tibet, and many other countries, values of compassion and kindness spread everywhere. The people found peace in Buddhism, fostering a close-knit and loving community. However, the Tang did not solely rely on Buddhism. They continued to uphold and develop Confucianism, viewing it as the moral foundation and philosophy that helped the court manage society. The combination of Buddhism and Confucianism created a Chinese society rich in spiritual depth and sustainable moral values. The people had faith in a peaceful world through Buddhism while maintaining a sense of responsibility toward their families and society through Confucianism. This blend of spiritual values and practical reality fostered a stable society, developing harmoniously both materially and spiritually. The legacies of the Sui not only influenced dynasties within China but also spread to neighboring countries such as Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. The administrative achievements, examination system, and public works of the Sui created a model that these countries could learn from and apply. Japan, in particular, sent many delegations to China to study its administrative and governance systems, leading to significant reforms in their own government. Korea and Vietnam similarly adopted similar elements, drawing inspiration from the Sui's reforms to establish centralized governance and promote social development. Through the stories of the Sui, the people recognized that while a dynasty may be short-lived, the values it leaves behind can endure. The Sui was not just a feudal dynasty, but a model of reform aspirations and relentless efforts to bring about unity and prosperity for the country. They demonstrated that despite facing many challenges, a dynasty could rise if it harnessed the strength and talent of its people, and if it empathized with and understood the true needs of its citizens. And like a beacon shining brightly in the dark night, the values of the Sui continue to illuminate subsequent dynasties, not only within the borders of China but also reaching far beyond. The dynasties that followed the Sui recognized that power is not eternal. It only holds meaning when built on the trust and loyalty of the people, and when it is accompanied by compassion and responsibility toward the community. More than 1,000 years later, the legacies of the Sui endure in every brick of the Grand Canal, in every ancient temple, and in every book of Confucianism and Buddhism passed down through generations. The Sui Dynasty, though it has departed, left behind achievements and lessons that will forever inspire those who aspire to build a fair, prosperous, and happy society. In later generations, as people sit by the banks of the Grand Canal or admire the ancient temples built during the Sui Dynasty, they cannot help but feel moved by the tremendous efforts that this dynasty invested in its development. The Sui was not just another dynasty. It left a profound mark on Chinese history. The architectural achievements, the administrative system, and the spiritual values became eternal footprints, capturing the essence of an era full of aspirations and reformist zeal. During its time, the Sui made every effort to build an ideal society where people could live and work in a peaceful and prosperous country. As time passed, the history of the Sui became clearer and was viewed as a great lesson about the ups and downs of power and the resilience of moral values. Those who recount the story of the Sui not only speak of its downfall but also highlight its courageous steps in reconstructing and building a new China, with the examination system and an egalitarian approach to selecting talent. The Sui demonstrated that a dynasty becomes stronger when its people feel valued and can contribute meaningfully to the nation. Scholars from distant rural areas flocked to the capital to participate in examinations, carrying with them hope and pride. They represented the spirit of learning and relentless striving, becoming factors that helped the Sui grow stronger each day. The Grand Canal stands as the most vivid symbol of the will and strength of this dynasty. This artificial river served not only as a means of transportation but also as a bridge connecting regions and cultures. With every boat that passed, goods, ideas, and cultures were exchanged, creating a robust network that linked the entire country. For those living along the Grand Canal, the waterway was a source of life, an economic and spiritual lifeblood that brought people closer together and fostered a cohesive society. The bustling ports along the river, filled with crowded markets and the lively calls of merchants, testify to the development and harmony of this period. However, the Sui Dynasty also imparted a profound lesson about the necessity of maintaining the loyalty of the people. They endeavored to build a powerful empire. Yet ultimately, the failure in the Goguryeo campaign, the burdens of heavy taxation and labor, and corruption within the court led to public dissatisfaction. The uprisings reflected the deep loss of trust among the people toward the court, serving as a valuable lesson for any subsequent dynasty. The Sui, regardless of their great power, could not sustain themselves without the support and trust of the populace. These mistakes became cautionary tales for later dynasties, helping them recognize the importance of balancing power with the will of the people. The blend of Buddhism and Confucianism during the Sui also left a lasting impact. Buddhism provided the people with tranquility and peace of mind, especially during challenging times. Meanwhile, Confucianism offered moral values and a sense of responsibility, helping to establish a well-ordered and cohesive society. This combination created a solid spiritual foundation that helped the people overcome challenges and build a harmonious community together. The temples, shrines, and Buddha statues left by the Sui were not merely religious architecture. They symbolized compassion, kindness, and the integration of ethical values. For neighboring countries, the Sui became a symbol of progress and strength. Japan, Korea, and Vietnam admired and learned from the Sui's reforms, particularly its administrative system and examination system. The Japanese, with profound admiration, sent delegations to China to study its political system, laws, and culture, bringing back valuable knowledge to build a strong nation. They learned from the mistakes and successes of the Sui, applying relevant elements to develop their own countries, thereby laying the groundwork for a culture that was independent yet profoundly influenced by China. The stories of the Sui are not merely pages of history, but also a source of inspiration for those who come after. The Sui demonstrated that although their existence was brief, genuine values and monumental achievements would endure over time. Subsequent dynasties understood that the power and prosperity of an empire do not lie in expansion or grand constructions, but in the loyalty and support of the people. They looked at the lessons from the Sui, learning and gaining insights to create stronger dynasties that developed harmoniously and respected the populace. With each generation, the Sui is recounted in different ways, but in the hearts of the people, this dynasty remains a symbol of great aspirations, of the will to reform, and of an unwavering determination in the face of adversity. The Sui dynasty is not just a dynasty that once existed in Chinese history, but a lasting mark on the national consciousness, a model of eternal values concerning justice, compassion, and perseverance. The flow of the Grand Canal continues to run, and the ancient temples and shrines stand firm after thousands of years, serving as witnesses to a glorious era. The history of the Sui may close, but its values remain vibrant in every breath of China, spreading through every village, street, and even to distant lands. The Sui dynasty, though short-lived, has left an immortal tale of resilience, of the rise and fall of history, and of humanity's desire for permanence. Future generations, when reflecting on this dynasty, will not only see a chapter of history but also the shadow of a grand dream, a dream that has become the foundation for the sustainable development of an entire nation.